Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Replay, the show where games are art. We're back again with To the Moon, continuing our backwards journey through Johnny's life in an effort to find out where his desire to go to the moon came from and what we can change to make it happen. We haven't found much yet. Instead, we found a tragic, somewhat mysterious story about the death of his wife, River. Johnny's conversation with Isabella tells us a lot. Johnny cares for and about River. He's in a lot of pain, and he wants to make the both of them feel better. Completely understandable. But he's trying to do it by taking away River's agency, by lying to her. We saw last episode how well that's going to go for him. It's not always wrong to take someone's agency away. Sometimes you have to lie to people to protect people, but not like this. If you live in 1930s Germany and the Gestapo shows up at your door, or here in 2018 America, ICE, you are morally obligated to lie to them to protect the people you're hiding in your attic. But that's different from protecting someone by taking their own agency away. That's just trying to control them, putting your own desires, your own ideas, your own ego above what they want for their own lives. Meanwhile, Isabella uses a word to describe Johnny that's a dead giveaway: neurotypical. While the meaning has broadened somewhat since this game came out to mean someone who doesn't have any mental illnesses or neurological disorders, it originally meant people who are allistic, which is to say not autistic. By using it to describe Johnny in contrast to herself and River, Isabella is making clear that she and River are autistic. This isn't River's mysterious illness that she's dying from. Autism doesn't kill people, though misunderstanding, hatred, neglect, and failure to vaccinate certainly do. But it is something that ties into her behavior. I'm not actually going to talk about that much in this series because I'm not autistic. I have family members who are on the spectrum, but I'm not any kind of expert and I don't have the lived experience. I will say, though, that it makes a lot of sense to me that an autistic woman's favorite story might be The Emperor's New Clothes, seeing as it valorizes the one person who doesn't quite understand the social pressures going on around them and is therefore able to cut through the bullshit to the truth. The song the music box plays is Everything's Alright, and as Johnny says, no, it really isn't. It'll play elsewhere in the game, when things really aren't alright, but we're trying to assure ourselves that they are. But that's the point. The song is about holding on through the rough parts, trusting that things will work out. I'm not good at that. Never have been. I talked last season about hope and how dangerous and destructive it can be when it leads to complacency. But I do agree that the most important thing is to hold on through the rough parts. Don't listen to the voice of despair telling you that you can't hold on, and don't listen to the voice of hope telling you that it's safe to let go. Grab the future by the throat and throw it where you want it to go. Everything is not all right. It's never all right. But you've made it this far, so don't stop now. Johnny mentions that he and River have a long history with the lighthouse, and that's why they're planning to build a house overlooking it. That history is longer even than Johnny knows, but when he says things like that, it implies to River that maybe he does remember on some level. Some of what he says to Nick later in this scene suggests that she's not wrong. He comments that he knows River expects something from him with the bunnies, and more to the point, he knows there's something he owes her. He can, dimly, sense the hole his missing memory left behind. He can't see its shape, but he can feel that it's there, and that what River wants is connected to it. Wise words from Rosaline. The ending isn't more important than any of the events leading up to it. Endings are boring since there really only ever is one. Everything ends and everyone dies. What matters is the bits before that. That's the service Neil and Rosaline offer, fixing up those bits before the end. So the fact that River died to ensure the lighthouse is looked over isn't the important thing. What matters is why she cared that much about the lighthouse. As I mentioned last episode, my first time through the game, I thought Anya was their dead child, buried here by the lighthouse. It initially surprised and confused me to learn she is the lighthouse. But then I thought, is there really that much of a difference? The grave of a child isn't a child. It's just a thing, a marker. The person is gone. But it signifies the lost person, and so it makes sense to us that a grave is very important to the grieving. The things lighthouses usually signify aren't anywhere near as big or important or emotional as a lost child is to a parent. But the key word there is usually. We don't know what the lighthouse signifies to River, just that it's important to her. Even if the thing it signifies turns out to be something most of us wouldn't consider worth dying for, River obviously disagrees, and that's all that matters. Nothing has any meaning of its own, only what it means to someone. Nothing has any importance of its own, only how important it is to someone. That's why agency is such a big deal. I like brownies better than cupcakes. Maybe you like cupcakes better. I don't dislike cupcakes, and I'll happily take one when it's on offer, but if the alternative is a brownie, I'd rather have that. Come dessert time, it might make no sense to you that I would order the brownie when there's the option to have a cupcake. Maybe I can't explain to you why I like brownies better than cupcakes. I just do. What matters is that it makes sense to me, and I'm the one who has to live with the choice. Now, if you happen to know that the brownies at this restaurant are usually burnt, that's a different matter. It's information I might not have. But the right thing to do is to give me that information and let me make my choice, not to talk over me and insist that I'm going to have a cupcake. It's a trivial example, but that's the point. When the stakes are low, it's easier to see what the right thing to do is. When the stakes are high and we're more invested, it's more tempting to overstep our bounds, as Johnny tries to do with River. Anya matters to River, so much that she's willing to die for her. She chose Lighthouse Brownie over Survival Cupcake, knowingly and deliberately. We might not understand why she likes that brownie so much. We just have to accept that she does. River cutting her hair, making him describe the rabbit. She's trying desperately to remind Johnny of something, trying to recreate what he's forgotten as closely as she can, but as we saw at her deathbed, it doesn't work. She has clearly played out this ritual again and again, and yet Johnny never gets it. Why doesn't she just tell him? Because she's hurt that he doesn't remember. She wants to heal that hurt by making him remember. And if she tells him, he'll just remember that she told him, not the event itself. But even though he can tell the hole is there, even though he can tell that she's trying to fill it, he just can't. And she can't fill it for him. Her forcing her memories onto his feels to her like him forcing his preferences onto her. Unlike the autism thing, this is something I do understand and do have personal experience with. See, there are three main kinds of memory: biographical, semantic, and kinesthetic. Kinesthetic memory is remembering how to perform tasks. It's how you remember how to tie your shoes, ride a bike, do long division. Semantic memory is remembering facts. It's how you remember the plots of books you've read, the definitions of words, the number of feet in a mile. And finally, biographical memory is remembering events. It's what you use to reminisce, how you remember the first time you fell in love or the time you fell out of a tree, and also how you remember the names and faces of people you know. I have an excellent semantic memory. My kinesthetic memory's not bad, and my biographical memory is terrible. That's common in people who are aphantasic, which I suspect I may be. That is, people who think in words rather than images and have trouble imagining or remembering what things look like. But the bigger problem is, well, I'm not going to get too into it, but I have PTSD resulting from childhood abuse and neglect. I've been in treatment for years, and it's actually pretty well under control. Partially because treatment has reduced some of the symptoms, and other ones I've learned to live with and work around. But one of the symptoms which doesn't show any signs of ever getting better is amnesia. My memories of my childhood are in tatters. There are isolated fragments, little flashes that I can't place in order or work out the context of. Sometimes there's a brief scene with enough context that I can place it or at least narrow it down. I remember standing at my dad's grave, for example, but I can't remember if that was at his funeral or because I walked over there after my uncle's funeral. Other than a few things like that, I basically have no memory whatsoever of the first 19 years of my life. I can remember things other people have reminisced about to me, but that's semantic memory. I remember the plot of the story they told. Even after that, like I said, my biographical memory is not good. Memories for me are still brief flashes and isolated scenes, difficult or sometimes impossible to put in order or figure out exactly when they happened. For example, just today as I record this, my Facebook Memories feed informed me that I published the My Little Pomo entry on Stairmaster on the same day my sister had her baby shower. That doesn't make any sense to me. My Little Pomo was aeons ago, while my sister's pregnancy was just a little while ago. Wasn't it? And no, they really were the same day. But you see, my memories of My Little Pomo, and all the writing I've done since, are recorded as semantic memory. I remember the ideas I wrote about very well, and so there are tons of those memories between it and me. My sister's baby shower, which I didn't attend, but I did stick my head in to say hello for a minute before my brother and I went out to whatever we did that day, is recorded in my biographical memory. So there are hardly any memories in the 5 years since it happened. Presence of many memories causes the past to stretch out for the My Little Pomo entry. Their absence causes the same period of time to collapse for the baby shower. For me, that's how it's always been. I'm used to it. It's normal. And you can't miss what you don't remember having. But it's endlessly frustrating for people who know me. Do you remember when? No, but I believe you that it happened. I've had that conversation about things that happened a week ago. The point is, because it's a story being told to me by a game, I remember more about Johnny's life than I do my own. Anyway, what set River off, what made her need to remind Johnny, is him telling her why he first spoke to her. Something about that is wrong. Something about his explanation tells her that he's forgotten something that's important to her. She cuts her hair and starts making bunnies in an effort to remind him. That tells us what he's forgotten. Something about their first meeting, which is again familiar. Of my 3 closest friends, I remember nothing about how I've met the one I've known for 24 years. Very little of how I met the one I've known for 22. And while I remember bits and pieces of my first in-person meeting with the one I've known for 10, I don't remember anything of our online and phone interactions before that. I know at least one of them is hurt by that. She's told me that she fears that I might forget her entirely, and I can understand why. It's just like the essay and the baby shower. We measure time in memories, not seconds. That's why emotionally intense periods of your life feel longer in memory than they were in reality. But I make very few biographical memories at all, so I measure time poorly on the scales of days and weeks and years. I have trouble telling those scales apart. For me, there's not actually that much difference between not seeing someone for a week and not seeing them for months. The number of memories formed in between is just so few either way. A fact which is endlessly frustrating for my family, because from their perspective, I just disappear for weeks on end until they seek me out. From my perspective, I didn't see them yesterday or the day before, but I definitely did at some point, didn't I? I feel bad about them feeling bad, but short of having a routine scheduled bi-weekly visit or something, which doesn't work with any of our lives, there's nothing I can do. Anyway, the point is, my friend fears that my memories of her will fade and get more fragmented, and I won't realize it's happening, and then I won't remember her at all. But that's not true. I've never forgotten a whole person, at least not one that I was close to. I might not be able to assemble a mental image of them, but I can describe them, and I know what they have expressed is important to them. I remember what our relationship is and what they mean to me. I just can't remember the events that explain why. I can see why that isn't very comforting to the people who know me. I understand why it's hurtful to them that I have little or no memory of events that were important to our shared relationship. Just as River is hurt by Johnny's failure to remember. But like me, he couldn't help it. We'll see why later in the game, but the short version is that it isn't his fault he doesn't remember, and he has no way of fixing it. The one person who might be able to help fill in the gaps is almost certainly dead by the time River realizes Johnny doesn't remember. But we'll talk about that more as we delve deeper into Johnny's memories and see how he remembers the origins of his relationship with River next time on Replay, the show where games are art. Bye!